instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name. Number 10, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Once again, thank you very much for joining the call today, and I welcome all of you to Bhakti Sangha conference call. Let us move to our next session, which is Srimad Bhagavatam call. May I know who all have joined the call this morning?
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajas. This is Nina from Naperville, Chicago.
Hare Krishna, Nina Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya Nanda Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai, Priti Dasi from Charlotte. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Priti Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya, Narmada Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharajas, and all glories to the assembled devotees. This is Tiffany in Pennsylvania. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Tiffany Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Ananda Priya Narmada Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Shama Guru Devidasi from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna, Shama Gauri Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya Narmada Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees. This is Indulekha Karuna Devi Dasi from Lincoln.
Hare Krishna, Indulekha Karuna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj, all glories to assembled devotee. This is Mohini Lakshmi from Detroit.
Hare Krishna, Mohini Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Is there anybody else?
Narmada Mataji, all
Hare
glories to
Krishna, Nanda Priya
Prabhupada.
Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to the assembled devotees in the call. This is Anita from Sharjah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya, Narmada Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajis. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devidasi from Raleigh.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya, Namadadi Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All wish to Srila Prabhupada, all wish to Guru Maharaj, and all the devotees. Hare Krishna. This is Kaumudiki Dasi from Baltimore. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Kaumadiki Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Guru Maharaj. This is Shiromani Nandarani Devidasi from Krishna Katadesh.
Hare Krishna, Shiromani Nandarani Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Mataji, shall we start the recording, Mataji? It's already 18:78. Hare Krishna. Welcome to Bhakti Sangha conference call. Today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Keshavanand Prabhu on the call to enlighten us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 10th chapter, 23rd sloka. Before handing over the call to Prabhuji, I would like to ask Anita Mataji to give some brief introduction about Prabhuji. Mataji, please take over.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to the assembled devotees in the world. Dr. Keshavanand is a professional doctor and a monk. Since the last 20 years, he has conducted extensive research and authored books in the field of science and spirituality. He feels the rift between science and spirituality must disappear to bring peace in the world. If spirituality is a superstition and a myth, science is materialistic and atheistic. A new approach to life is needed today that can bring the best of both. Science must re-embrace spirituality and be humble to admit its defect, flaws, and ignorance, and spirituality must base itself on sound, scientific, and rational ideas. Dr. Keshavanand found this new approach in the Sanskrit Sutras of the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita. For decoding the Sanskrit Sutras of the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita, he studied Sanskrit and Western and Indian philosophy. Besides Sanskrit, he also learned Bengali, Gujarati, Marathi, and Kannada to know about other traditions. His persistent endeavor in the field of science and spirituality has enabled him to come up with seminars on diverse topics like science and the Vedas, mind and machines. Science fails to explain life, consciousness, and beyond, etc. that he has presented in various colleges in India, Europe, and America. Under the guidance of his spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Vikasa Swami Maharaj, he has also started a Gurukula, a traditional system of Vedic education in Punjab, India, where children learn the ancient Vedic culture and values. Besides, he has started a farm community. The community has a traditional way of living with mud huts and thatched roofs with cows and, of course, farming. The communities will set a model for the world to show how to live a life based on the principle of simple living and high thinking. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Anita Mataji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. All, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for giving your valuable time and association towards us this morning. Prabhuji, do you want us to read the sloka translation and purport?
Yeah, if it's possible.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Induleka Karuna Mataji, please take over the call and please go ahead with sloka translation and purport, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Okay. So we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 10th chapter, 23rd verse. Shastabhigupta nripati prajanam yah kinkaro vainapi nashti pishtam swadharmam aradhanam achyutasya yati hamano vijahatya aghaugam. Translation. My dear sir, you have said that the relationship between the king and the subject, or between the master and the servant, are not eternal. But although such relationships are temporary, when a person takes the position of a king, his duty is to rule the citizens and punish those who are disobedient to the laws. By punishing them, he teaches the citizens to obey the laws of the state. Again, you have said that punishing a person who is deaf and dumb is like chewing the chewed or grinding the pulp. That is to say, there is no benefit in it. However, if one is engaged in his own occupational duty as ordered by the Supreme Lord, his sinful activities are certainly diminished. Therefore, if one is engaged in his occupational duty by force, he benefits because he can vanquish all his sinful activities in that way. Purport. This argument offered by Maharaja Rahuguna is certainly very effective. In his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.4, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Tasmad kenapya upayena mana Krishne niveshayet. Somehow or the other, one should engage in Krishna consciousness. Actually, every living being is an eternal servant of Krishna, but due to forgetfulness, a living entity engages himself as an eternal servant of Maya. As long as one is engaged in Maya service, he cannot be happy. Our Krishna consciousness movement aims at engaging people in Lord Krishna's service. That will help them become freed from all material contamination and sinful activity. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.10. Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha. By becoming detached from material activities, we will be freed from fear and anger. By austerity, one becomes purified and eligible to return home back to Godhead. The duty of the king is to rule his citizens in such a way that they can become Krishna conscious. This would be very beneficial for everyone. Unfortunately, the king or president engages people in sense gratification instead of the Lord's service, and such activities are certainly not beneficial for anyone. King Rahugana tried to engage Jadabharata in carrying the palanquin, which is a form of sense gratification for the king. However, if one is engaged as a palanquin carrier in the Lord's service, that is certainly beneficial. In this godless civilization, if a president engages people somehow or the other in devotional service or in the awakening of Krishna consciousness, he renders the very best service to the citizens. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Indulekha Karunamataji, for the sloka translation and purport. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please take over the call, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Is my voice clear to all of you?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes.
Om Gyanatimirindasya Gyananjana Shakakaya Chakshur Unvitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurude Namah Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Vedanta Swamiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Shunyavadi Paschatishta. Okay, so we are trying to discuss this verse, 5th canto, then chapter 24th verse, 23rd verse, sorry. Now, Shasta Vigopta Nipati Prajanam Yaking Karo Vaina Pinashtikishtam Sudharmam Aradhanam Achyutasya Yat Ihmano Vijahati Bhogam. Yeah, so this verse is there. You can all see this. Now, this verse is simple. I mean to say, if you see the Sanskrit, you will yourself understand. Shasta Avigopta. Shasta means governor. Avigopta means, Prabhupada says, a well-wisher of citizens. A father is a well-wisher of his children. So Avigopta means father, who is a well-wisher. And then, oh, what's this? And then comes Nipati. Nipati, you understand, king. So Rahugan Maharaj, King Rahugan, he's trying to refute the arguments of Jad Bharat. And he's saying, okay, he's saying, well, so he's saying, so because Jad Bharat, he raised an argument to Rahugan Maharaj previously, just previous to this discussion. He said, you see, you're talking, so my dear Rahugan, you're talking about master and servant, king and subjects. But I think this is all temporary relationships. That's all. So it doesn't matter whether you're a master or I'm a servant, you're a king, or I am a citizen. These things can get reversed, because next life I can be master and you can be servant. I can be king and you can be citizen. So this is all temporary relationships. But Rahugan, he's countering that argument and he's saying, okay, I know that Shasta Avigopta, which was there just now, they were showing. So he said, I know that this governor. So can you show the verse? So this, so I know governor, king, abhigopta, nripati means king, and shasta means governor. All these people have to govern somebody. Yah king karo. They, the citizens of Prajanam, the citizens of the city are kinkar, are actually servants of these people, the father, the king, and the governor, the local governor. You have to follow the things. But then he says, Vaina pinashtipishtam. It's so it's not that that these people are instructing that the king is instructing his citizens. It's useless. It has a reason for that. Na pinashtipishtam. Pinashtipishtam means grind what is already ground. So Jad Bharat said that, so that, my dear Rahugan, you were ordering me to carry a palanquin as a servant, as a citizen, but then that's of no value, because in previous lives you might be my servant and I am the master, and I was ordering you. And so in the next life again you become servant, I become the master, I order you, and then in the next life you become the master and I become the servant, and then you order me. It just keeps on going. That's why Jad Bharat said it's all grinding what is already ground. But Rahugan says no, it's not like that. Ingran says no, it's not a useless activity that the king is ordering the citizens, or father is ordering children, or the governor is trying to order his local people. It's not a waste of activity. Why? Because swadharmam aradhanam achutasya. Because if anybody follows his swadharma, the king's occupational duty is to actually order his citizens. That's all. It's to guide the citizens by ordering them, if necessary by punishing them. It is said in scriptures that punishment, danda, is the so according to dharma, danda is the most purifying of all agents. That's interesting. In Gita it is said, pavanam, air and water is the most purifying of all agents, especially air. That's according to Gita. According to dharma, punishment is the most purifying of all agents. So father must punish children if they are wrong. King must punish citizens if they are wrong. So Rahugan was trying to punish Jad Bharat because he was not walking straight while carrying palanquin. So he was just reprimanding him, chastising him. So the occupational duty of king is to give punishment, chastise, guide, warn, protect, and if necessary, then order. That's what king is supposed to do. So swadharmam, that is my swadharmam, Rahugan says. Aradhanam achyutasya. And swadharmam, following one's occupational duty, is the best kind of worship of the Supreme Personality of God. This is the main line which actually Rahugan raises the point. This is the main point which he raises, and that's very interesting point, and I like to discuss on this point. This is the whole crux of this verse. If anybody follows his occupational duty, that's the best kind of worship of Krishna, Achyutasya, or Vishnu. And by doing this, what happens? Yad ihamano vijahati. Yad ihamano. By following this, what happens is Vijahati Agaugam. So Vijahati means released from, Agaugam means all kind of sinful activities and faulty actions. So this is the verse. This is a simple verse. In a nutshell, okay, so now let's talk about it. In a nutshell, what happens is Rahugan is trying to raise a point of dharma. So can you just remove this screen? Yeah, just remove this. Yeah, thank you. So Rahugan is trying to raise a point of swadharma. That's very, very important. And this discussion, Rahugan is in a misconception that following one's occupational duty is the best kind of worship of the Supreme Personality of God. That's the first misconception. because following one's occupational duty is not the best kind of worship of Supreme Personality of Godhead. If following the occupational duty does not satisfy and please the Supreme Personality, it doesn't make any sense. In fact, Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a verse. What's that verse? I forgot that. Swadharmam padambujam hare. No, not that verse. So the verse which Ramanand Rai quotes to Mahaprabhu that so that following one's occupational duty is the best kind of worship of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's a Bhagavatam verse which is very famous. What's that verse? I'm just missing from my mind. If anybody knows, they can tell me. But there's a very important verse. I'm just forgetting. Charvata, following Varnashrama, Haritatosha Karanam. That pleases the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. I'm just missing the point. Anyway, so if anybody knows, you can tell me. Haritatosha Karanam. What's that verse? Let me just have a look. Varnashrama Charvataha. Anyway, so I'm just forgetting. Anyway, so there's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll remember that in a few moments. That following Varnashrama is actually best, which actually pleases the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's a famous verse, which is actually very famous to Madhva Sampradaya. Madhva Sampradaya people like that verse a lot. So that verse comes in first canto, and also within discussions of Ramanand Rai and also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He quotes that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells Ramanand Rai, okay, let's discuss about sadhe and sadhana. So in that sadhe sadhan, when he talks about that, at that time Ramanand Rai gives one option, that following Swadharma is the best kind of activity which can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm just missing that verse. I don't know. I'm just missing that verse. It's crazy. Karanam. Let's see. Vishnu aradhyate pantha nanyat tattosha karanam. Is it this? Okay, let's see. 855. Okay, yeah. This is a verse. I got it. This is Varnashrama Charvata Purushena Parapuman Vishnu Aradhyate Pantha Nanyat Tattosha Karanam. This verse is from Vishnu Puran 3.8.9. This is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Okay, yeah. This is 3.8.9. Yeah. So this is mentioned in actually Chaitanya Charitamrita also. That has to be seen properly. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 8.58. That's the verse there. So if you can show that verse. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita quotes from Vishnu Puran 3.8.9, but this is actually Chaitanya Madhya Leela 8.58. And there, if you see that verse, in that verse, if you see, I think they are opening. The verse says Varnashram Achara Vata. Yeah, this is the verse. Okay, let's see this. Varnashrama Chara Vata. Manu behaves according to the system of 4 divisions of social order and 4 divisions of life. Varnashrama Achar Vata. So anybody who follows Varnashrama, their own occupational duty. Purushena Parapaman. So any person who follows prescribed duties executes properly. Vishnu Aradhyate Panta. That's the only way to actually worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Nanyat Tattosha Potso Karanam. There is no other way to satisfy Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is a very important slok. This verse says there is no other way to satisfy Supreme Personality of Godhead except following your own occupational duty of Varnashrama. Now this verse If you go to Madhva Sampradaya, if you go to Ramana Sampradaya, especially Madhva Sampradaya, they like this verse a lot. For them, this verse is like a fruit cream. Practically. They like, in fact, when Chaitanya Prabhu went to Udupi, he asked the pontiff there, when he visited Udupi, he asked the pontiff that, okay, what's the philosophy? There, the pontiff or the Acharya, and we know at that time the Acharya was Vyasatirth, he quoted this verse. And if you see the purport, Purport Srila Prabhupada quotes from Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam also says the same thing. Now you might think, okay, this is Vishnu Puran. This is from Vishnu Puran, quoted from Vishnu Puran, Prabhupada says. But Srimad Bhagavatam says the same thing. Ata pumbi duja shreshta varnasham vibhagasha sonashchatasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshnam. Beautiful verse now. Bhagavatam says the same thing. Ata pumba duja shreshta. Any pumba means man, duja shreshta means Brahman. Any best among Brahmanas, therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's occupational duty according to caste divisions and orders of life is to please the Supreme Personality of God. So you see this, the point. Bhagavatam also says this thing. The highest perfection is that by discharging duties, your occupational duties, you have to please the Supreme Personality of God. The same argument Raghugan is raising. Swadharmam, Raghugan is raising the same point. Swadharmam aradhanam achitasya. By following occupational duties, we can worship the Supreme Personality of God. In fact, Vishnu Puran says there's no other way. That's interesting. But then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says no. He says well, this is okay. Vishnu Puran says, Bhagavatam says, but the whole point is the best way to please Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually Shravanam Kirtanam. So Mahaprabhu quotes that word, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam. And then Chaitanya Prabhu points out in this verse. So somebody can argue, okay, well, Bhagavatam says that occupational duties is to please Supreme Personality of Godhead. So can you show the verse? Yeah. You have to show the verse, Sanskrit verse.
Prabhuji,
So,
this verse itself or this verse itself?
No. Srimad sorry, it's not Sanskrit verse, Bengali verse. Yeah. Wait, Srimad Bhagavatam verse in the purport. Okay. Yeah, so here Srimad Bhagavatam says, so Mahaprabhu points out there. Mahaprabhu doesn't point out in Chaitanya Charitamrita discussion. But later Acharyas point out that Srimad Bhagavatam, so Madhva Sampradaya likes to quote, Ramana Sampradaya, they like to quote Srimad Bhagavatam also. And then they say to us, to ISKCON and to Gaudiya devotees, that you see, so you're not following Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam says that you have to follow occupational duty, and by following occupational duty, you have to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But you're always focusing on Shravanam, Kirtanam, and this, and you're not focusing on Varnashrama, and but we think according to Bhagavatam, the main thing is Varnashrama. Although we also want to bring Varnashrama, Prabhupada said to bring Varnashrama back. But Varnashrama for us is actually just a anupul, just a favorable to actually the real process of devotion, which is Shravanam and Kirtanam. So Mahaprabhu said to Ramanand Rai, when we talk about sadhya and sadhan, when we talk about the process of devotional service, we can't accept that following the duties Varnashrama is the process for devotional service. So Ramanand Rai and Mahaprabhu asked Ramanand Rai this very important question. What is sadhan and what is sadhya? Sadhan means a process. Sadhya means goal. The goal is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's very clear. There's no problem. Love of God or to please Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then what's the process? According to Madhva, it is following occupational duty. According to Raghugan Maharaj, it is following occupational duty. According to Vishnu Puran, it is following occupational duty. There is no other way. And then they quote Bhagavatam. According to Bhagavatam also, it is following occupational duty. So then they say, you Gaudiyas and you ISKCON people, You have changed the philosophy and you are saying sadhan is not following occupational duty. Sadhan is Harinam Kirtanam, Shravanam Kirtanam, according to Mahaprabhu. So you change things. Bhagavatam, your Bhagavatam doesn't say, and there's a big argument. But then our acharyas, they comment on this verse. And they say, okay, we will handle this argument. Well, as far as sadhan is concerned, as far as process is concerned of devotion, it's very clear. There is another verse also, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padam Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atma Nivedanam Iti Pumsam Arpita Vishnu. The next verse of that. Anybody who offers these 9 processes to Vishnu, Vishnu becomes pleased. So according to Bhagavatam and Prahlad Maharaj's authority, sadhan is not this. So then they can say, well, okay, fine, but then Bhagavatam also speaks this. So then how do you explain this verse? If you say the process of sadhan is Shravanam Kirtanam, then how do you explain this verse of Bhagavatam? So acharyas explain this verse of Bhagavatam in commentary. And then they say, okay, fine, we'll explain this verse. And the verse says, Swanishthasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. Now here the important word is samsiddhi. Samsiddhi. Haritoshanam is to please. That's the sadhe goal. What's the sadhan? Swanishthasya dharmasya. Swanishthasya dharmasya, to follow one's occupation. It seems by reading this verse that following occupational duties can please Supreme Personality of Godhead. But no, the important link is samsiddhi. Samsiddhi. Now, all acharyas comment on this word. And they say, no, by following occupational duties, you will get siddhi. Shravanam and Kirtanam. And then Haritoshanam, then Krishna will be pleased. That's the explanation of Arava Acharyas. Of course, these people, of course, Madhva Sampradaya and other Ramana Sampradaya, they say, no, we don't like this explanation, because according to us, the explanation is following the occupational duties, Swanishthasya dharmasya samsiddhi. Samsiddhi here means you will get, so you will get moksha. Siddhi, perfection. Perfection of human life is moksha. When you get moksha, then Haritoshanam, then Krishna is pleased. They have their own interpretation. But then we can always argue, if we interpret this verse like that, then how do you understand what Prahlad Maharaj says? That the process is Shravanam and Kirtanam. What do you do with that? So if you want to solve this contradiction of Bhagavatam, then our Acharya says, no. Here samsiddhi means by following occupational duty, you will get perfection in Shravanam and Kirtanam. That's why the word is samsiddhi. Siddhi means perfection, sam means complete. Complete perfection in Shravan Kirtanam, and then Krishna will be pleased. So according to our acharyas, following occupational duty is actually favorable to our bhakti process, Shravanam and Kirtanam. And that's what Prabhupada said. Prabhupada said in all his quotations, Prabhupada said, we want to establish Varnashrama. Why? Because it provides a favorable atmosphere, physically and mentally, to actually execute devotional service, to execute Shravanam and Kirtanam. And then Krishna will be pleased, isn't it? That's what Prabhupada said. You please come to farms, grow your own food, keep cows, live peacefully, don't be in the city life, live peacefully. You need mental peace to do Shravanam and Kirtanam and to avoid contamination. And then you get perfection in Shravanam and Kirtanam, then please Krishna. It's simple. So you see the point. The point here is the point which Raghugan Maharaj is raising. Okay, so one question is, so can you just show this verse, so Vishnu Puran verse quoted here in Chaitanya Charitamrita, just above. I don't know. Yeah, okay, fine. So somebody can say, but then Vishnu Puran says, Nanat Tattosha Karana. Vishnu Puran is very adamant. Vishnu Puran says, if you don't follow your Varnashram, occupational duties, there is no other way to please Krishna without following occupational duties. According to Mahaprabhu, what's that verse? Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Evakelam, Kalo Nastev, 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 according to us, there is no other way except Harinam to please Vishnu, to please Krishna. But Vishnu Puran says this. So is Vishnu Puran wrong? That's the whole question. So Vishnu Puran is because it's a very touchy matter. Because Vishnu Puran is one of the, so just like for Gaudiyas, Bhagavatam is a main book. For Sri Vaishnavas, Vishnu Puran is a main book. So for them, if this verse is there in Vishnu Puran, they say this is the verse. Just like we say Hare Nam, Nastev, 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 Hare Nam, Hare Nam. They speak this. Vishnu Adite Pantana, Nyatosha Paranam. So they follow Varnashram very strictly. So the whole point is now they may say, well, what about this verse? So then, is Vishnu Puran wrong? No, Vishnu Puran is not wrong. When Vishnu Puran is saying there is no other way to please God except following occupational duties, the point which Vishnu Puran is raising is, it is saying, well, if you don't follow Varnashrama properly, then you will not be able to do Shravanam Kirtan properly. You will not be able to serve Krishna properly. And if you can't serve him properly and not do Shravan Kirtanam, then you will not be able to please Krishna. So it's like that. That's all. At least we understand it. Anyway, so we come back to subject matter. So the subject matter is, Rahugan raises the same point. And Rahugan Maharaj, he says, well, he says, okay, fine. So dharma maradhanam achyutasya. So you have to, so dharma maradhanam achyutasya. It is the same point that, my dear Vijay Bharat, your logics are okay. But Shastra says that if you follow occupational duties, Krishna will be pleased. And I am following occupational duty. And this is Shastra. And this is practical also. And I am ordering you, you're a citizen and you must carry palanquin properly. But there's a problem there. Srila Prabhupada then writes in his purport. Prabhupada writes that Rahugan Maharaj, although he was saying following occupational duty will please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he was not Krishna consciousness. That's the whole point. He was actually ordering for his own sense gratification. That's the most important point. Prabhupada mentions here in the purport. This would be very beneficial. Unfortunately, king or the president engages people in sense gratification instead of Lord's service. And such activity is certainly not beneficial for anyone. King Rahugan tried to engage, King Rahugan tried to engage Jad Bharat in carrying palanquin, which is a form of sense gratification for king. See, King Rahugan should have engaged Jad Bharat in carrying palanquin in Lord's service. That's the whole point. Although Rahugan was trained as a king. So can you just remove this? Yeah, just remove this. Screen. So although Rahugan was trained as a king, now let's talk about it. Now things will become a little clear. Although Rahugan was trained as a king, and he was taught that you should follow occupational duty nicely, so that it will please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That was correct, provided he should have been Krishna consciousness. He should have been following Shravanam and Kirtan, and he should have understood that everybody should be engaged in the service of Lord and not his own service. Then it would have been all right. But Rahugan Maharaj, he learned dharma. He learned the dictates of dharma without understanding the essence of dharma. That's a very important insight which Srimad Bhagavatam gives. And that's why Srimad Bhagavatam says, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharma Yato Bhaktir Adhokshajare. So Bhagavatam says that the best kind of dharma is to do devotion to Supreme Personality. And then Bhagavatam says, Dharma Swanishtita Pumsam Vishvaksena Kathasuya. Now Pade Drati Ratim Shramayavai Kevalam, first canto. Anybody who follows his own dharma, occupational duty, but by following that, if Krishna and devotees are not pleased, then it's just waste. The same thing Jad Bharat said, isn't it? Jad Bharat said, Rahugan, you are ordering me. In the next life, I might order you. I might be king, you might be servant. In the next life, again, you might be king and I might be servant. It's all waste. Because Rahugan, Jad Bharat would see that Rahugan is a mere king. And he's not a devotee. He's not a full-fledged pure devotee. He's simply a king. That's all. But after meeting Jad Bharat, Rahugan became a pure devotee. That's another thing. You understand what Jad Bharat is saying. So that's the whole crux of the matter. Even dharma, religion practiced for one's own sense gratification, it's waste. So being a pious man, being a good man, doing good things, acting like a proper father, parents, acting like a proper king, it's waste if it doesn't help you or help anybody else to actually elevate in Krishna consciousness. And that's a very important point. Rahugan's order to Jad Bharat didn't help him in any way to become more Krishna consciousness. It simply helped himself. So that's very important thing, because you see, in this sense, having knowledge of dharma without having knowledge of devotion can be harmful. And that's called as dangerous persuasion. That's called as dharmdhaji. There's a technical term for dharmdhaji. That if anybody gets knowledge of dharma without getting knowledge of devotion, he will use dharma for his own sense gratification. That's what Rahugan is doing. Actually, King Rahugan is in a very dangerous position. You can be sinful and then you can do sense gratification. That's okay. Because you're sinful, you are doing sense gratification. It's expected. But you are religious and then you are doing sense gratification. That's very dangerous. And that is why it is said in religion, it is said in dharma, if a sinful man does some sin, and if a brahmana who has knowledge of religion, if he does some sin, does both of them get same punishment? No. If he does the same sin, both of them does the same sin, but one have knowledge, one doesn't have knowledge. Do they get the same punishment? No. The sinful man gets less punishment. And the brahmana who has all knowledge of dharma, if he's doing the same thing, he gets more punishment because he has the knowledge. But he's trying to hide his own sense gratification and sin using the knowledge of dharma. That's more dangerous. So Jad Bharat could understand that as a principle, following varna, swadharmam swadharmam radhanam achyutasya. What Rahugan is saying, that following occupational duty is a way to worship Krishna. That's not wrong. That's not wrong. And so Rahugan also gives logic that, well, if the king orders his citizens, and then if they don't follow orders, he punishes, it helps to actually purify them. It helps to bring citizens in a right direction. And so that's why he says abhogam. He says it helps to actually purify them from sins. And that's okay, that's right. Rahugan is making a very valid argument. Rahugan is not wrong. Basically, that you have to understand. Rahugan Maharaj is not wrong when he's saying this. When Rahugan Maharaj is saying in the verse, so in the verse Rahugan Maharaj is saying, let me just have a look. So where is the verse? Can you show me? So Rahugan Maharaj is saying in the verse that actually so can you show the translation there? So Rahugan Maharaj is saying that that by punishing citizens, by ordering them and punishing citizens, as I'm punishing you, because you don't follow my orders, he teaches the citizens to obey laws of the state. That's a very valid argument. If father doesn't punishes and orders his son, they get pampered and then they lose the whole situation. The son gets spoiled. So if the king doesn't act like a father to citizens who are like children, they get pampered and then they lose the situation. Then they get spoiled. So he's making a very valid argument. And then he says, if one is engaged in his occupational duty and as ordered by Supreme Lord, his sinful activities are certainly diminished. You see, Therefore, one is engaged in his occupational duty by force. He benefits because he can vanquish all his sinful activities in that way. So Rahugan says, if I order something to citizens, and even if they're following by force and not by their own will, still it helps them. Because it helps them to vanquish all sinful activities. Otherwise, they get absolutely spoiled. They become rogues. So certain force is required, certain order is required. That's what I'm doing. And this is the job of dharma. Dharma has two things. Dharma works by two things. Religion works by order, sense of order. The person who is following religion, he has a sense of order in his mind, that I am ordered by scriptures to do this, ordered by authorities to do this. And the second is fear, the fear of punishment. If I break the order, I'll be punished. These two sentiments, that this drives dharma. And this is what Rahugan Maharaj is raising the point. He's raising exactly the same points. He's raising these same points. I, as a king, by ordering people and by punishing them, I'm developing a sense in them to follow orders. And actually, I'm helping them to curb their independent mentality. And teaching them, you must follow somebody. Because independence and liberalism, and that's absolutely nonsense. We know this age is full of independence, liberalism. People are getting spoiled. People glide into sinful activities. And the next thing is, by punishing, I'm instilling fear that if you break orders, then you are going to get punished. So then they will not break orders. They will keep on following the orders. That's what I'm doing. So I'm not doing the right thing as a king. Actually, he's doing the right thing, and this should be done. It should be like that. Any good father, any good king, any good instructor has to order and has to punish if that order is not followed. There's nothing wrong in this. But Jad Bharat is having a spiritual vision also. Jad Bharat is not that he's simply a foolish person. He was a king in last life, in last life. Jad Bharat is actually, Rahugan Maharaj is a mosquito in front of Jad Bharat. Jad Bharat was a king of entire world. King Rahugan is a king of local something. Jad Bharat is like something like godfather of King Rahugan. Rahugan doesn't, and Jad Bharat remembers his previous life. He remembers everything as a King Bharat. He remembers everything as a king. He remembers everything as a spiritual person now as Jad Bharat. So he could see exactly what's the problem. If we would have encountered King Rahugan, we would have just succumbed to his logic, because he's a king, we have to follow orders. And if he doesn't follow orders, punished. This is his duty. He's doing his duty. So what's the problem? But Jad Bharat could see. Jad Bharat might be thinking in his mind, King Rahugan, you're foolish. I was a king of entire world, and I know what the things are. I know what you're doing. He could actually see in his heart, and he could see that his arguments are valid, but his arguments have no life. They're lifeless. Because they're divided, because this person is devoid of devotion. Being devoid of devotion, all these arguments are like a straw man. Straw man. In this, so in the agriculture, this. So they put that straw man to scare crows, isn't it? It's made of straws. So crows think there's a man, but there's not a man. It's made of straws. It's hollow from inside. So it's called a straw man fallacy. So Rahugan could actually, Jad Bharat could see a straw man fallacy in this. Arguments are okay, structure is okay, but it's hollow. There's no devotion. And Rahugan knew without devotion, any dharma will not actually vanquish sinful actions. Without devotion, any dharma will actually increase sinful reactions. So Rahugan Maharaj's logic is wrong. He is saying all sinful reactions will be vanquished if they follow the orders of a king. But Bharat said, you're foolish. It will actually increase sinful reactions, because it will increase your sinful reactions and citizens' sinful reactions, both of them. Because you are trying to engage me into your own personal sense gratification. So you are sinful in the name of religion. And then people who are following you, they will also be implicated in sinful reactions because they're not serving God and they're serving some master who doesn't understand anything. So both of them are sinful actions. So Jad Bharat actually diffused his logic. And then Raghuvan says, so by ordering and to develop a sense of following order in the citizens, Jad Bharat could understand that's also wrong. Because the sense of following orders, it should be there, but it should be there to help serve the Supreme Lord and not to serve the local person. That's crazy. What Raghuvan is doing, Raghuvan is actually in the name of Dharma, he's trying to control people. And that's what Prabhupada raises the point in the purport. Where people and governors and the kings and the presidents in this world, they try to control people, they try to use people in the name of that we are presidents, you should follow us. That's what Raghuvan is doing. Raghuvan is a bad king. He's a maleficent king. He is appearing to be good, but he's not good. These all arguments are wrong. Although they appear right, but if you think properly, they're wrong. So his both arguments are wrong. He is saying that, well, you helping citizens so that they won't become spoiled, but actually his orders are making them spoiled because now they are losing Krishna consciousness. They are thinking, okay, he's the master, I have to follow him. They are not thinking. Raghuvan is not helping them to think Krishna is their master. And you see history. In history in Andhra Pradesh, there was a king, Krishna Dev Rai. So Krishna Dev Rai, he was a king of South India. I think Tamil Nadu. So in this area, he was a king, and then he was so he was present at the time of Mahaprabhu. He was contemporary of Mahaprabhu. He was contemporary of King Prataprudra. Prataprudra, he was devotee of Mahaprabhu. He was ruling Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, part of Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu. And Krishna Dev Rai was ruling a part of Tamil Nadu and below that. And there was a conflict between them. But both of them devotees. Prataprudra was devotee of Mahaprabhu. Krishna Dev Rai was devotee of Vitthal. So Krishna Dev Rai was a Madhavite. His local guru was actually Vyasatirtha. And he was such a Vaishnava that it is said in Krishna Dev's Rai kingdom, people didn't used to lock their doors. And everybody compulsory they had to follow Ekadashi. On the Ekadashi, you will not be able to get in any of the shops. You can't get. And Krishna Dev Rai, he was famous that he didn't used to come in palanquin. He used to carry the palanquins of Brahmanas and devotees. And then he used to inspire people, you carry the palanquin and devotees. That's the job of ideal king. What Raghuvan is doing? He's just going into palanquin. Jad Bharat is sitting and he's saying, okay, call him. He'll also carry my palanquin. This is nonsense. So that is why it is said, following dharma for personal sense gratification. That's sinful and also that's harmful. Not just sinful, it's harmful for soul. Because when we try to follow religion without devotion, we tend to think we are right, we are good, we are pious, but actually we are not good because externally we might be good, we might be following our duties, but actually from a spiritual point of view, we are sinful because we are not serving the Supreme Lord. In fact, we are more sinful because we are using the knowledge of Supreme Lord to actually not to serve him. This is cheating. This is called as, in Hindi, it is called as haramkhori. I don't know. So in Prabhupada language, rascaldom. This is called rascaldom. You're using the knowledge of a person against him. And to actually, you're using the knowledge of another Krishna to fulfill your own agendas. This is very bad. So in that sense, some scriptures say that actually, from one perspective, sinful people are better than pious people. That's one understanding from this verse. Sometimes it happens like that. Simple people are better than pious people, if both of them are non-devotees. Because sinful people, if they come in contact with devotees, they can change to devotees. But pious people, they come in contact with devotees, they think, I'm great. And that's what's happening with Raghuvan and Raghuvan is a pious king. He's not a devotee. Jada Bharat is a devotee, and there's an interaction. And Raghugan Maharaj doesn't surrender, and he's arguing with him. So Narad Muni, he met, so Devarshi Narad, he met that hunter who was sinful. You know that Srimad Bhagavatam, Jar, who used to kill animals half dead. Narad Muni, he went and he said, why are you doing this? Leave this. He left. He didn't argue. But he said to Narad Muni, well, this is my occupation. If I don't kill animals, what will I earn and what will I eat? Narad Muni said, don't worry, you just do bhajan and I will arrange food for you. He accepted, no problem. But here Raghugan is arguing. And he will be giving more arguments, you see. So it is actually always better to remain a fool rather than having knowledge without understanding the purpose of knowledge. And that's why when Mahaprabhu's guru, he said, well, what about Vedanta Sutra? So Chaitanya Prabhu said, well, my guru told, my initiation guru told that actually I am a fool and I am not eligible to read all Vedanta Sutra and complex stuff. He just asked me to chant Hare Krishna. So it's not that we are not going to read Vedanta Sutra or other books. We read, we understand, but with the understanding that actually the aim and objective of reading all these things, of doing everything, is to actually chant nicely, serve Vaishnavas, become pure, and elevate ourselves. That's all. The aim of entire Dharma, entire Vedas, entire Vedanta Sutra is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. And Raghugan is such a foolish man. He couldn't even, he's arguing with a self-realized soul. He's arguing with the Jad Bharat. He's actually, he couldn't even identify Jad Bharat as Uttam Adhikari. He could understand. Because he's not a devotee. And that's another point which actually Srila Prabhupada raises, so not in this purport, but in his teachings, and Bhaktisanta also raises in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that actually if you are not a devotee, then you will not be able to recognize another devotee. And then you will commit offenses. So Raghugan is basically committing offense by arguing with Jad Bharat and saying you are wrong. But of course later he will realize and later things will change. But that's the whole point. So that's where Bhaktisanta used to say, if you are not, so if you remain Kanishta Adhikari, if you remain a neo devotee, and you don't raise yourself to Madhyama Adhikari, you will be involved in offenses. Because you will not be able to recognize advanced devotees, and you will do error. You will think, so you will take a Vaishnava as a non-Vaishnava, a non-Vaishnava as a Vaishnava, advanced devotee as a new devotee, a new devotee as an advanced devotee. You will all get mixed up, and then you will do offenses. You will not be able to behave with them properly, as what is happening with Raghugan Maharaj. So Bhaktisanta says that remaining Kanishta Adhikari is a very dangerous position. We should never remain a neophyte level. Should rate ourselves to at least Madhyama Adhikari. Otherwise, we are in a big problem. And how to do that? Simple. Chaitanya Charitamrita says, how to do that? Shastra Nipuna. You read philosophy, read scriptures, try to understand philosophy. The only difference between a new devotee and an advanced and Madhyama Adhikari, Kanishta Madhyam, is that Madhyam understands philosophy. Madhyam is not. Kanishta doesn't understand philosophy. He doesn't understand anything. So that's why he's liable to commit mistakes and not recognize anything. And that's, you see, you can be 20 years in the movement, but you can be Kanishta Adhikari. So that's simple as that. It's not just time which makes you advanced automatically. If it was time which makes you advanced automatically, then with time, then all the animals in the jungles, they would become also civilized and advanced in technology. It doesn't happen. Millions of years of animals, because they're not trained. They cannot be trained. So if it's time, so with time automatically, tribal people, they become super sophisticated civilized society. It doesn't happen like that. Tribal people are tribal people. Until unless they come in contact with actually sophisticated people, they don't learn and get trained with them. It doesn't happen automatically. So a person can be 20 years in devotion, but he can be at Kanishta Adhikari. The only difference between Kanishta and Madhyam is philosophical understanding. That's Mahaprabhu's take. That's not I am saying. Chaitanya Prabhu says in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Shastra Nipun. You have to become expert in philosophy. At whatever level you are, no problem. By reading, by hearing, or whatever. So the problem with Raghuvan Maharaj is, first, he is a pious man. He doesn't have understanding of devotion. Even if he has understanding of devotion, that's very superficial. He is either a non-devotee or he's a Kanishta. He's a Vaishnava pride. And according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Raghunath Das Goswami, when he left his home and he went to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Prabhu said to Raghunath Swami, Raghunath, your parents, Govardhan Das and Hiranya Das Majumdar, your uncle and your parent and your father, they're warm in a stool. Chaitanya Prabhu said. It's crazy, huh? Chaitanya Prabhu simply said, they're warm in a stool. Vishtara Keela. Vishtara Keet. They're warm in a stool because, and then Mahaprabhu says, they are simply Vaishnava pride. They're like Vaishnavas, but they're not Vaishnavas. They're simply materialistic people. So according to Mahaprabhu, Raghuvan is warm in a stool. He's a Vaishnava pride, like a Vaishnava. At max. That's all. Pious person following have some understanding of devotion. That's why he says, Swadharma Maradhana Achyutasya. He knows to actually worship Krishna is okay. But that he knows very superficially as a common man. Okay, fine. And if you follow your devotional duty, Krishna will be happy. This is what people say, isn't it? The people say, oh yeah, we are following our duty nicely, we are taking care of family, so then God will be pleased. This is the same thing what Raghuvan is saying. There's nothing different. And that's why Jad Bharat could understand, although his arguments are valid according to religion, they're perfect, but he has simply crammed them. And he's not entered the spirit of these arguments because there's no life, there is no devotion. How can you enter the spirit of dharma? That's why if you want to enter the spirit of dharma, the only way is devotion. Devotion helps, bhakti helps us to enter the spirit of dharma. Without bhakti, we will not be able to enter the spirit of dharma. It's impossible. That is why Bhagavatam says, first become a devotee and then understand dharma. That's Bhagavatam's understanding. We should not reverse it. First dharma and then bhakti. That doesn't work. Why? Because without following bhakti, sense gratification tendency cannot be removed. By following dharma, you can get rid of sins, but you cannot get rid of sense gratification tendency. The only way to do that is bhakti. And once you get over sense gratification tendency, then you follow dharma. Then you will be able to follow dharma to please the Lord. Some siddhi haritoshan. Aradhanam achyutasya. Otherwise, you will not be able to do that. Although Raghuvan is saying, so dharma aradhanam achyutasya, he is not doing this. He thinks he is doing this, but he is not. That's the whole problem. So he is a Vaishnava pride and he's a warm in a stool. Jad Bharat could simply understand that. And Jad Bharat cuts all his logic and he says, you're wrong, my dear king, you are nonsense. In one sense. He's speaking nonsense. But then no one is arguing with Jad Bharat. He was speaking nonsense. But then later Jad Bharat, but later Raghuvan Maharaj will realize afterwards. Actually, I'm talking to a self-realized man later. By the mercy of Jad Bharat, by his preaching, he became a devotee. Raghuvan Maharaj. So, I mean to say another point is, you see, we will also encounter people like that in our life. And we should be able to, Jad Bharat is a very good preacher in one sense. He could really diagnose a problem. He was not confused by external structure of piety. And he actually one by one, he took the arguments. Later, he'll take the arguments and actually smash all of them and dismiss all of them. Break all of those arguments. Break the straw man structure. He did that. So Jad Bharat, although he is foolish, but he's a good preacher. So by Jad Bharat, we think he's a foolish man. But no, he's a great preacher and he has actually exhibited his preaching skills here. in this whole incident. And he actually convinced Rahugan to become a devotee. So we can see this whole thing. We can see this whole thing, this whole discussion. And we can see what all things are hidden in this whole verse. So there are many points to learn in this whole verse, as I suggested, right from Jad Bharat's perspective, from Rogan's perspective. We should be preachers like this. Jad Bharat is showing what kind of preacher we should be. We should have no interest in this material world, absolutely no interest like Jad Bharat. And we should be expert in preaching, if we are able to convince anybody. That's a good preacher. If we have interest in material world and if we're preaching, we'll fall down. And that's a problem with all preachers who fall down. They might be expert preachers, but if they're not like Jad Bharat, if we don't have. So for them, the material world is not like a stone, some kind of attraction, then they fall down. So actually, Jad Bharat whole incidents helps us to understand how to become a good preacher, in one sense, if you really think about it. Jad Bharat is not teaching us how to become disinterested from this material world and do nothing. No, he's preaching. And he's preaching. If he could convince Rahugan Maharaj, this means he might have met other people. He might be preaching already. Because how can he counter arguments so effectively? That means he was not sitting on the road just whole day passing, doing nothing. He might be traveling and preaching to people, talking to them, traveling to them. Although it's not mentioned, but we can expect that this it might be like that. Okay. Anyway, so I think I'll end up here. Hare Krishna, Shri Prabhupada. Any questions? Anything anybody wants to ask?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much for the wonderful class, Prabhuji. We'd like to open the call for questions. If anyone has questions, please go ahead or raise your hands.
Hare Krishna, Keshavanand Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the class. I have to go back and watch the the video again because there were several things that I didn't pick up. But at the very beginning, you had mentioned that Dharma is the best form of purification. Did I get that right?
No. I told danda is the best form of purification. Punishment.
Danda. Okay, punishment. Yeah. Okay. And then what were there was some other forms of purification that you gave?
Yeah, so that's according to Dharma. Dharma says of all purifying agents, the best purifying agent is danda, punishment. That is the perspective of religion. But the perspective of Gita is of all purifying agents. I'm listening to the perspective. Yeah, perspective of Gita, but then within the perspective of Gita, the perspective of Ayurveda. Let's put it. Perspective of Ayurveda is of all purifying agents, the best purifying agent is air, pavan. Pavan, from pavan comes pavana.
Okay.
So that's according to, let's say, Gita or Ayurveda. But then according to devotional perspective, according to Bhagavatam, the best of all purifying agents, the best purifying agent is Harinam. So you see, all answers are correct, but from different perspectives. That's the whole point, and on different levels, because the Ayurveda's answer is at physical body level. Right. Best purifying agent is air or water, and the answer from Dharma's perspective, it has so that answer is at mental level. But the answer of Bhagavatam, Harinam is best of all purifying agents, that's at the level of soul. So we need all three answers, am I right? Because we have body, we have mind, and we have soul. But the whole problem with Rahugan is he is saying that so it's a level. So it's a level. Of course, we know more important than body is mind. More important than mind is soul. We can sacrifice body for soul, but we can't sacrifice soul for the body. We can't do that. But Rahugan Maharaj, he flips the logic. He thinks that mental level is more higher than spiritual level, and that's why he's saying that punishment is good. That's why I'm punishing. So Rahugan says, yeah, I know, but then there's a higher teaching. Harinam is good for soul. I know for mind punishment is good, but for soul Harinam is good. But then you are trying to purify mind, but we're not about soul. Where soul is corrupt and if your mind is pure, then what happens? It's useless. It's crazy. So it's almost saying like that. My health is good. My health is very nice, but there's one problem. I have cancer. I'm going to die in 2 months. Otherwise, it's fine. What's this? This is complete nonsense. So that's the problem with Rahugan Maharaj. All these arguments are good, but his focus is wrong. You see, that is. So I didn't bring this point in this lecture because this needs a whole entire different lecture. His focus is wrong. He's focusing on dharma, and he's putting bhakti secondary. We also talk about dharma, and so Jad Bharat also understands as the king in previous life. He's talking sense, but he puts bhakti first and dharma second. So that's what the entire problem is of focus there, and that the problem of focus makes Kanisht, Madhyam, Uttam. So it's not that Uttam is not reading philosophy, he's simply in ecstasy. It's not like that. Uttam is in ecstasy, but for him, ecstasy and love is the primary thing. Philosophy is secondary thing. For Kanisht or Madhyam, philosophy is the main thing. Love of God is okay, secondary, but that becomes the main thing. So then his devotion becomes covered by Jnana. So it's all focus. So a new devotee might be focusing on his health because I have to serve Lord. But advanced devotee is focusing on service. And then he's maintaining health. A new devotee can compromise service for his health. Advanced devotee will never do that. He can compromise health for service. So it's all focus thing. So there's a fight of focus between Jad Bharat and Rahugan. What is primary, what is secondary? What is first, what is second? And so Jad Bharat, after this whole discussion, he manages to flip Rahugan Maharaj's idea and then becomes clear with it. That's the whole thing happening here. I couldn't go in details in this, but anyway, this one point.
No, thank you, Prabhuji. It was very good. I really appreciate how you made the distinction of, looking at it from different perspectives based on your level, the level of understanding, and especially with explaining, occupational duty, and because a lot of the focus sometimes seems to be on Varnashram, but at the same time, then there's the focus on devotional service, which is a higher level. So, so thank you so very much, Prabhuji. Wonderful class as usual. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Bhargavi Mataji. Please go ahead with your question.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the very beautiful class. It was so many things got cleared by your class today. So always we had this thing that why Varnashrama, still we see so many places that it has been encouraged and many projects are going on, and you yourself also in Punjab in a very nice farm community. So now many things got clear that all these things are making us giving us facility to concentrate on Shravanam, Kirtanam.
Right.
Yeah. And also you said that the focus is also different. Like for a new devotee, he will be focusing on the minor things, that health and all that. And for the advanced devotee, he will actually give importance for the service. So that also really helped Prabhuji. And the thing is, yeah, and the thing is that like when people wants to go to such kind of place, like let me be in a farm community, a calm, so that I can concentrate on my sadhana and all that. So some devotees are really okay to be wherever they want, and they want to continue with the preaching. So this means the second person is in a better state of concentrating on the service.
If he's saying I'll be anywhere, but I'll focus on service, that person.
Yes.
Well, you see, it depends. We have to ask him, why he wants to be anywhere and just preach. If that person is able in his circumstances to actually come in a Varnashram society or in a conducive place and then also preach at the same time, but he's not doing that, then there's a problem, right? Then he's not in a better position. But if he's saying, see, my circumstances don't allow me to actually go in an ashram or in a farmhouse anywhere, because people have different circumstances, family, this, that. But okay, now no problem. Still, I will focus on my service and preach. Then he's great. But then the other person, he says, okay. So some person says, well, I'm preaching, but then let me go to Varnashram. But then his preaching suffers, and then he says, okay, but going to Varnashram is good because in cities I'm like getting stressed up and this and that. So in Varnashram I lead a very good life, peaceful life. Then that's not good, because the whole point of going to Varnashram is not just to lead a peaceful life. You're going there to actually fulfill the mission of Srila Prabhupada, to actually show the entire world that this kind of life is helpful for Shravanam and Kirtanam. So there's a mission there. So it's not just like my life and my wife and my devotion. That's not Varnashram, you see. So it depends what kind of consciousness he's carrying in his mind. But the whole point is, if person is clear, service is primary, Varnashram or Dharma is secondary. So Dharma is favorable for service. If that concept is clear in his mind, then that person is in a better position. Whether he's outside, whether he's inside, doesn't matter. That's the whole thing.
If you have time, thank you, Prabhuji. I have two more questions. Yeah. And like when we see, so we get the instruction that we have, I understand the preaching is the most important thing. And sometimes we get instruction that we have to go deeper into the subject, what we are going to do after going back to Krishna. We should know how to serve Krishna, what he does, what he eats, when he sleeps, when he gets up. So that kind of deity worship and developing that relation and what exactly is happening, and developing, getting into that kind of service is also important. So can you please throw little light on these two things, like not going very deep, but just doing preaching, getting new people to ISKCON. So that is one kind. And another place is giving more importance to getting deeper into the philosophy and what is the bhava. Yeah,
you're right. You see the point. People, even people who are preaching, first they should understand that the first person they are preaching to is themselves. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. I am preacher and I'm preaching this. Well, what about you? So preaching helps you more than any other person who's listening. So when we are preaching to ourselves also. We are also reminding ourselves, we have to become pure devotee. Am I right? Otherwise, okay, I'm saying I'm reminding others, but I don't remind myself. Then he's a crazy man, right? So if so many people are sitting there and you're preaching, who is the most near person to you? You. So when preachers forget that point, then that they're preaching to themselves also by preaching, then they fall down. Because then they become preacher. and they become higher, and people become lower, and then the whole string starts. I am preacher, my congregation, I have to guide them. Then all this, me mind comes. But when we preach, we think, okay, I am a servant of Lord, and I am giving this message of Krishna to them and to myself. We are all equal, that's all. But of course, to speak, you have to sit on a high level, that's all. Otherwise, that's something practical. People have to sit down, otherwise I can't see them. That's how we think. So, so in that sense, if we are preaching to ourselves, then we have to understand what we are preaching to ourselves. Am I right? It's not that,
Yes.
okay, I'm preaching to myself also, but I don't understand it. That is crazy. So every good preacher, every true preacher, not just good, every true preacher who understands this point, he will himself go into deep philosophy. Because he knows he has to also raise his level of soul. And by the way, we can't raise people to a level beyond what level we have. It's not possible. So you know what will happen? If we are preaching and if we are not going deep in philosophy, what will happen is after some time, people whom you are preaching, they will also come at your same level. They will also read all Prabhupada books. They will also, then conflict starts. Because they think this person knows the same thing. And then they come to programs and then the same thing is getting repeated. Am I right? Same thing getting repeated. Yeah, the same stuff. Then they come, then politics. Then they say, why are you sitting there? Why am I not there? What's this happening? And that's the main cause of politics. That's the main cause of fights. And then people think this can be solved by management, but this cannot be solved by management. Because management, the more you try to manage a messy situation, the more messy situation becomes. So just like if you fall down in a, what's it called? Daldal ditch with that. What's it? Quicksand. You know quicksand, no? If you fall down in a quicksand, it will suck you. So when you fall down, you're getting sucked, and then you say, please help me, and then you move your hands and legs, you get more sucked up quickly. The advice is, if you fall down in quicksand, don't move your hands and legs. Just shout. So management is like that. If you try to manage a messy situation, you become more messy. And this is what Bhagavatam says. If you try to clean mud with the mud, it becomes more muddy. So the whole point is, the only solution to actually not, preachers should not fall down, this problem should not come later. The only solution is the preacher has to upgrade himself regularly. Otherwise, people will come to his level, and then some people might go beyond his level. Then they will ask him questions, and then the preacher will say, you're doing offense because you are asking questions more than your eligibility. The point is, he doesn't know the answers. You're doing offense. That's so. If every good preacher, true preacher, if he really wants to help people and himself, in the long run, he will go into deep philosophy. Otherwise, it will become chaos. That is one of the sutras in Chandalya Sutra. If you read Chandalya Smriti, there is a Smriti, Chandalya Smriti. And by the way, that Chandalya Smriti is not for brahmacharis, that's for grastas. So it says any grasta who is a preacher, he should keep on upgrading himself. Otherwise, his disciples will come to his level and they will then do offense and they will become. That's going to happen. You can't stop it. So that's why people who preach, then they have Bhakti Vriksha, then congregation, then they keep on managing, and then after some time they are at the same level, and then politics. Then they say, oh my God, politics, these are nonsense. You are nonsense. So I think it goes hand in hand. It's not that preacher is preaching one way, another is you have to go in deep philosophy. No, it has to be together, otherwise it becomes chaos. That's what it means. I can't hear your voice.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. Very beautiful. I understood the balance. Yes, and one more thing, that it is really important that each and every devotee will be able to understand that much deep before he perfects his life. That much.
Why not? No, you see the point. To understand deep things, you don't Of course, first you have to read the books. That's just 25%. 75% comes with a desire to understand and purity. That's 75% part. And Krishna says in Gita, Krishna says, Prabhupada says in 10th chapter Bhagavad Gita, 10th verse. So what that verse? No. So what that verse? Evanu kampartham. No. Evanu kampartham eham agyanam jamtama. Oh, okay. Tesham evanu kampartham. But before that, Tesham satyuktanam hastam priti purokam. Yeah, you're right. Dadami buddhyokam tam. Krishna says anybody is doing satat kirtan, who is actually glorifying me always, I will not let him remain a fool. Prabhupada says in the pulpit. From within I will give buddhi. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, whenever he was in confusion in philosophy, he used to ask Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. Gaur Kishore Babaji was illiterate. You can imagine. And when he used to ask Gaur Kishore Babaji, he used to give absolutely exact answer. So we try to do our best with a desire to understand. You see, the whole point is many devotees, they don't have even a desire to go in deep philosophy. As a question, either preacher or deep philosophy. Well, better we preacher than deep philosophy. They think it's different, am I right? So they say, okay, no problem. Yes. It's not necessary to go in deep philosophy. So then they don't have a desire, then how will they go in deep philosophy? So first they have to understand that these are required, and then to develop you have to develop the need to go in deep philosophy, otherwise how it will come. Krishna is going to force us on us now. So when we have need, then we will start reading Prabhupada books. Prabhupada will inspire, Krishna will inspire. He will give necessary intelligence to go deep, and you will automatically enter deep. Automatically. But devotees think, oh, I'm not so intelligent, so I can't go really deep. How it will happen? It's so tough. Well, it's not intelligence. You don't have a desire to go deep. You don't even understand why to go deep in deep philosophy. That's what the problem with devotees is. Otherwise, things are solved. Nobody is foolish. People are so intelligent to earn money. What about that? What about that? Yes. Tell me, so intelligent in business, money. I mean, so Mataji will say, no, we are not so intelligent. We are simple devotees. We can't go in deep, so deep, Prabhuji. Well, Matajis are very intelligent. So when it comes to actually criticize other Matajis, do politics and this, or manage everything, they are intelligent. They are not. I mean, Matajis have to. So if you see on positive side, Matajis have to actually manage their family, manage their parents' side, their husband's side, and isn't it? Children, so you have to have some intelligence to manage everything, right? And they do that.
Yes.
So everybody's intelligence, but the problem is lack of understanding and a desire to go in deep philosophy. Then they don't. At least my understanding is like that, and Shandila Smriti says that. And Gita also says the Dami Buddhi Okanam. You can go. Krishna will give. No. Like that. That's what I think.
Thank you, Prabhuji. And one thing that I heard previously in some lecture, that Chanakya Pandit has said that we need 5 people for agriculture. If you have some light on it, you can throw.
5 people for agriculture?
It doesn't. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, do you have time for more questions?
Yeah, why not?
So there is one more question in the chat by Lalitangi Mataji. She said, Atha Pumbir Dvija Sreshta and Tyaktva Swadharma Charanambuja looks contradictory. Can you explain, Prabhu?
Atha Pumbir Dvija Sreshta and Tyaktva Swadharma. Yeah, okay, fine. She's asking. So she's saying that the question is that one verse Bhagavatam is Atha Pumbir Dvija Sreshta Varna Ashrama Bhavasha. That's one verse, which says if you follow your dharma, you can please Krishna. Another verse is by Devarshi Narad, Tattva so dharmam parnam bhujam hare bhajan apakvo pate tato yadi. So Narad Muni says, if you have left all your dharma, and if you're simply doing devotion, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Even if you fall down from devotion, still it is better than following dharma, because there's no loss in the path of devotion. Even if you fall down, you will continue from the same point in the next life. That's what Narad Muni says. So Narad Muni is recommending to actually abandon all dharma. And Bhagavatam says here that, okay, follow dharma, and then of course dharma has to inspire, dharma is favorable to devotion, and then you can please Lord. This is that verse says, follow dharma, which will produce favorable situation for Shravan Kirtan, then you please Krishna. Narad Muni says, abandon dharma. Abandon dharma. And then you do devotion, no problem. Even if you fall down, still that's better. So it looks contrary. So like that, there are many contradictory verses. Jiva Goswami also raises regarding this point in Bhagavatam. It's not just 2 verses. And this is a very big topic, I need to say. But the whole crux is, it looks contradictory, but it's not contradictory. Because the harmonization of this is, Bhagavatam says, okay, dharma is favorable to Shravan Kirtanam. That's okay. But Narad Muni is making a different point. Narad Muni is saying, Tattva so dharmam charanam bhujam hare. Narad Muni is saying, even if you leave dharma, and if you take 100% to devotion, then also you don't have any problem. Contrary to the person who is following 100% dharma with no devotion. A person who is following 100% devotion with no dharma, he is much better than this person who is following 100% dharma with no devotion. That's with that perspective, Narad Muni is saying this verse. He's comparing these 2 people. He's not asking us to leave dharma there, because it's the same Narad Muni advises all these varnas. Same Narad Muni gives varnashramas instruction, dharma instruction to Yudhishthira Maharaj in Bhagavatam. Well, right in Bhagavatam, Narad Muni says. So he's simply making a point, comparing these 2 people, and he's saying that person is better, who is following 100% devotion, trying to follow 100% devotion, and who has left all dharma. Even if he falls down, he's safe. But that person who is following dharma 100%, even if he doesn't fall down, he is nonsense. He is nonsense. That's the verse in that perspective we have to hear. Otherwise, it will make no sense. I think it makes sense to Ravikant Mataji.
Actually, Mataji had to leave the call, but she will definitely listen to this. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for that explanation. Okay, there is one more raised hand, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Sureshwar Prabhu. Yeah. Sureshwar Prabhu. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu. Can you hear me, Prabhu? Yeah, yes, Prabhuji, yes. Here 2 things, Prabhu. Prabhuji, if you see here, Maharaj Rahugana was going to Kapil Ashram, right? So he was on the spiritual path, right, Prabhu? So Jada Bharat carrying the palanquin is not a material activity; it is a spiritual activity, right, Prabhuji?
Oh no! Raghuvan Maharaj is not on a spiritual path. Raghuvan Maharaj is not a devotee. He might be on a spiritual path, but he is simply contaminated by karma and jnana, and that's why he's Vaishnava pride. That's why he couldn't really understand what Jada Bharat is saying. So anybody can go to Kapila Ashram. It's not that he's going to Kapila Ashrama because he's a pure devotee. He might be going to Kapila Ashrama just for dham, visiting dham, because Kapila Ashrama is in Ganga Sagar. You know that, no? We know that. So even today, so he might be going to have darshan of Ganga Sagar, like many people know. That's all. It's not mentioned what was his purpose.
Okay.
So it's clear.
Yeah. Prabhuji, one thing you are mentioning, how is the air the purifying agent, Prabhu? Like in Bhagavad Gita also it comes, right? How is that air the purifying agent? From what perspective, Prabhuji?
No. It is said out of Prithvi, Jal, Vayu, Agni. This Vayu is the most purifying of all agents, and you can see that even if you take bath and apply soap, but you need air, Try it, you won't feel good. And then when the environment So then what's the main factor? So when cool breezes blow, then you feel okay, it's nice. So air, when it flows, then not only your body becomes purified, but your mind also becomes purified, it becomes peaceful. So in that sense, air is the most purifying agent. Like that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Very nice class, Prabhu. That point of where devotion to the Lord and duties are necessary, right? Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so I think it's all done.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I think that would be all the questions. If there are no more questions for Prabhuji, we would like to end the call here. Thank you so much for your very valuable time and association, Prabhuji. And we look forward to your association again in the future. We'll pay our obeisances. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Namo namo.
Anant Koti Vaishnava Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, His Keshavanand Prabhu ji ki jai. Thank you so much, Prabhu ji.
Jai.
Prabhuji Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.